am so excited to share this recipe with you guys today. I have been making brownies since I was 8 years old, and every holiday season, it never fails. My family asks one thing: when are you making brownies? So this year I actually created a brand new recipe. It turned out fantastic. It is a fudge brownie recipe designed to emulate Betty Crocker's fudge brownies that I used to make when I was 8 years old. And then I added a special twist. I'm gonna add in some slivered almonds as well as some caramel sauce just to jazz it up a little bit from the holidays. Let's get started. Okay, to start off, I already have my sugar in a bowl and I've melted 2 sticks of butter and added some espresso powder. Espresso powder is really great to add to anything chocolate related. It just helps enhance that chocolate flavor. I'm gonna add the butter and espresso mixture to my granulated sugar, and then I'm gonna whisk it until it's nice and fluffy with the electric hand mixer. That looks pretty incorporated, so I'm gonna start adding in 1 egg at a time. Don't rush it, make sure you just do 1 egg at a time. That way each one gets really well incorporated before you add in the next one. You'll see that'll start to change into a very kind of pale color, almost reminiscent of cake batter. That's actually what it reminds me of. And you'll start to smell the espresso powder and the sugar coming together. It's such a sensory experience making brownies. I love it. I love when people come into my house and it's just like that fresh scent of chocolate hits them immediately. That's good. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the second egg. Whoop. 2 accidentally went in there, but that's okay. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want to over mix this wet mixture. Before I add my dry mixture to my wet mixture, I love to sift it together first. It helps aerate all your dry ingredients and make sure there are no lumps in there, especially with the cocoa powder. Sometimes it'll clump together and you really just want to make sure all the chocolate and flour, salt and baking powder is just mixed together nice and evenly before you add it to your wet mixture. Consider that your pro tip of the day. And enjoy watching it fall. It's like chocolate snowflakes are just falling down into the bowl. It's all powdery and soft. I freaking love it. See, you'll end up with these lumps in the bottom, and that would have been inside of your batter if you hadn't have taken the time to sift it together. So if you have any lumps left, simple trick, all you have to do is take a spoon and sift it on through. Look at that. It should just fall gorgeously like soft powder. Now that I've finished sifting together all of my dry ingredients, I'm gonna combine them with the wet ingredients a little at a time just to make sure everything is nice and incorporated. I'm gonna take a spoon and just very gently add some of that flour in there, and then I'm gonna fold it together using a spatula. That way I don't over mix it, but at the same time I just make sure there are no lumps and bumps of flour in there. I want a nice smooth mixture. Take your time and enjoy it. Let the aroma start to fill up your kitchen space. You'll smell the dark chocolate combining with the espresso and the sugar. It's such a sensory experience, and I think that's why I love making brownies so much. Aside from the fact that it's like incredibly nostalgic for me and brings back all of these wonderful childhood memories, I just love the smell of them. I love that when people walk into my house, that's the first thing that hits them is just this beautiful chocolate aroma. Very slowly, your batter is gonna start to transform into this gorgeous dark brown color. I chose to use dark chocolate. One, visually, I just love that dark, rich chocolate appeal. And then taste-wise, honestly, nothing beats it. Once you start using dark cocoa powder, you are not gonna wanna go back to the pale powders that you've been using before that are a little more processed, and they take away from that rich chocolate fudge flavor. That's well incorporated. I'm gonna add in the rest of the powder. So here's a cool pro tip. When you're sifting together, let me try that again. So here is a very cool pro tip. Do not mix your dry and wet together all the way. You're gonna stop just before it's combined, and you're gonna add in the chocolate chips as well as almonds. That's gonna help you prevent over mixing your batter. Now I'm going to add in chocolate chips. Use a quality chocolate, especially since these are fudge brownie. The chocolate is your standout ingredient, so don't cheap out on this one. And then I like to pour in the almonds, but I take some and put them to the side. That way I can decorate the tops of the brownies. I like for people to know what they're getting themselves into. And if I put the almonds on top, people who are allergic to almonds or just don't like them, they can look at the brownie right away and go, that's not for me. And then gently combine that together. I'm gonna reserve a few of the chocolate chips too, now that I think about it. Those will be cute on top. Don't overmix your batter. Once again, just gently kind of fold everything in together, making sure that all of your mix-ins are nice and evenly distributed. The really cool thing about this recipe too is you could mix in different things. So for example, you could mix in pretzels if you wanted to. Just keep your measurements the same. So if you're gonna swap out the almonds, maybe for something else that's a little more allergen friendly and you wanted to do pretzels instead of using almonds, you would just use half a cup of pretzels. There we go, that's nice and beautiful. You have this beautiful, beautiful batter. Now that I have my pan greased and ready to go, you could also use parchment paper if you want to. I just decided to grease my pan this time around. 9 by 13 inch pan. I'm gonna pour in this batter. It is thick, so you might have to scoop it in. That's okay. You just wanna make sure that it's spread out evenly before you put it into the oven. I'm just gonna take the back of the spatula, kind of start to spread it around, make sure it fills out the whole pan. I know it looks like it's not enough, but trust me, it's gonna spread and rise so much once it's in the oven. I thought the same thing the first time I made this recipe. I was like, oh my gosh, I put it in a pan that's way too big. But in the end, they came out perfectly. And then for that last little bit of batter that you have on there, I actually like to just take the back of a knife, a butter knife, and scrape it off. It's like waste not, want not. We don't want any leftover batter. We're gonna use every drop of this batter. Okay, this is when my perfectionism kicks in, if that's even a word, perfectionism. I'm a perfectionist. So this is when I actually like take my time to make sure this is super smooth and even. I just have a thing about like things needing to be symmetrical. I don't want half of my brownies to be thicker than the other half. So I literally take my time and like meticulously spread this out evenly because I want every brownie when this is finished to be practically identical. Now I'm just going to take the reserved chocolate chips and almond slivers and I'm gonna evenly spread them out on top. This one doesn't have to be perfect. It's really just there for visual effect. Again, I like for people to know what they're getting themselves into. So as soon as they look at these brownies, they'll see melted chocolate chips on top, they'll see almonds, and they'll see caramel, and I'll help them decide, is this something that I want to try or not? I'm sure you guys have been somewhere before at a bakery and you're kind of looking at all of the pastries they have available and you're like, huh, I wonder what this is. Well, this kind of helps avoid that. If you put some of those reserved ingredients on top, it takes the guesswork out of everything. The best part, the caramel sauce. You have options here. You can actually swirl this into the batter before you put it into the pan. I like to reserve it to go on top because what's gonna happen is some of this caramel is gonna pull up in the corners of your pan and it's gonna candy. So it's gonna add this extra crunch to all the edges of the brownies. Genius. And now these are ready to go into the oven. When it comes to baking these brownies in the oven, originally I had my recipe designed to keep them in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, but I noticed they needed a little bit longer. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to put them in the oven, start at 35 minutes and check on them and see how you go from there. My sweet spot was about 43 minutes the last time I made them, so I'm gonna start at 35 minutes, check on them, and then leave them in for an additional few minutes if I feel like the center is still a little too jiggly. Just in time, I got them out right before the timer went off. You can see that caramel is bubbling. It's gonna harden and candy You've got beautiful almond slivers, melted chocolate on top. These are gonna need to cool for at least 1 hour before cutting into them. So find yourself a book, cozy up, and take a break. As I eagerly anticipate cutting into these decadent delights, I can't help but envision the delight on my nieces' faces. The fudgy, chocolatey taste, the moist, chewy center, and the crispy, candied caramel edges create a symphony of textures that transport me back to the simple joys of sharing homemade treats with family. This holiday season, let's indulge in the warmth of tradition and the delicious embrace of these fudgy almond brownies with caramel swirls. Share the love, bake the memories, and relish every blissful bite.